started more than 1,000 miles apart. Democratic gubernatorial nominee Abigail Spanberger grew up close to the Capitol, graduating from J.R. Tucker High School in Henrico County before getting her bachelor's degree from the University of Virginia. Professionally, Spanberger worked for the U.S. Postal Inspection Service and for the CIA as a case officer.
When I was in law enforcement and then working counterterrorism at CIA,
we didn't do politics. We did our jobs.
Politically, Spanberger represented Virginia's 7th Congressional District in Congress from 2019 through 2025. On the other hand, Republican Winsome Earle-Sears' story begins in Jamaica, where she lived until she was 6 before immigrating to the United States. Earle-Sears served in the United States Marine Corps and says she's most proud of her community work leading a men's prison ministry and as director of a women's homeless shelter.
I'm no typical politician. I'm a first-generation American. Joined the Marines, graduated college as a working mom, raised a family, became a grandma.
Politically, Earle-Sears served in the House of Delegates from 2002 through 2004 before being elected lieutenant governor in 2021.
And that was Tyler Englander reporting. We'll hear from him a little bit later in the show. This gubernatorial election will have some history made despite the outcome. No matter the winner, a woman will be governor of Virginia for the first time. Now it's time to show you an important part of the whole process. It's called the spin room.
Yeah, the spin room. This is where candidates will hopefully field questions from reporters following the debate. And that's where we find 10 on your side's Markeisha Jackson. Markeisha, how's it going down there?
Hey, Andy and Aisha, yeah, the spin room is starting to get busy and get full as we are less than 30 minutes away from the first and the only debate that these gubernatorial candidates will have. We have Republican candidate Winsome Earle-Sears facing off against her Democratic challenger, Abigail Spanberger. And like you were saying, they are expected after the main stage to take the stage and here, the spin room, to field more questions from reporters. This is how things look inside of the spin room now. Media from all across the Commonwealth gathering here, all ready to watch this debate. And like Aisha was saying, it is going to be historic, if you will. Now, like I said, this is where all the media will be for the duration of the debate and even after watching those two candidates face off. Now, this is a historical election because for the first time, Virginia voters will be electing a female governor. And it's all eyes on the two tonight as they face off for the first and only time during this race. Again, this is another look at how things look in the spin room. A lot of things getting ready to unfold here as we are less than 30 minutes away from the start of that debate. It gets underway here on Wavy at 7 p.m. So this room, it's going to get even more busy and more full as we get closer and closer here. Busy day here on Norfolk State University's campus. A lot going on, a lot to show you as the night goes on. Andy and Aisha, back to you.
Markeisha, thank you very much. Our countdown to debate night in Virginia continues. When we come back, 10 on your side's Nick Broadway will join us with reaction from Norfolk State University students as another key debate is held on campus.
Aisha, for the third time in the past 5 years, Norfolk State University is hosting a debate for a statewide race. The first two were races for the U.S. Senate.
Of course, this time it's for the race for governor of Virginia. It's another big chance for students to get involved in the political process. 10 on your side's Nick Broadway joins us from Norfolk State University. And Nick, students are really excited about this moment.
Yeah, that's right, and they are already getting into this watch party behind me here over at the Student Center, a different building from where the debate's even happening. They're just watching on a projector, and there's still people pouring in here getting ready to see what those two candidates have to say. I'm joined by someone who is studying this very topic, a political science sophomore, Leon Hicks Jr. Tell me, what issues do you hope to hear about at tonight's debate?
There's many issues I want to hear about. Firstly, the biggest issue, at least right now in our current country, is the government shutdown. You know, what steps can be helped and made, hopefully, to alleviate that, so we don't go back to 2018. As you know, that was the longest shutdown. I believe it was about 33 to 35 days. It was. It was around that time. That's one of the issues I want to hear about. And another one of the issues I want to hear about is, as governor, you know, they are the overseer of the Guard, so I want to see if, hey, is the Guard going to be deployed on Virginia, like how it is in D.C. and Chicago, and of course in California also. Another issue I want to hear about is, right now we are experiencing a lot of, I want to say a loss of people, but it's a loss of employment. So especially that's just nationwide and also statewide. So hopefully there'll be some things made to alleviate that. So hopefully we get more people in jobs and less people out the streets. Another thing that is on the rise is the rise of costs. The rise of costs are, I wouldn't say higher than ever, but they're pretty high. So hopefully we can find programs or find ways to help, alleviate the costs on basic necessities that people need, and especially housing. Housing is also the biggest one too. And another thing that is affecting me and many people also is, like you said, we're on here, Norfolk State University, we're on campus, and we're hearing about just financial aid being taken away, just some things about that also.
Gotcha. Are these issues you think will get voters to vote for a candidate one way or the other if they talk about this tonight?
I do believe these issues are a driving factor, but I'm just 1% of people out here. I'm just a small percentage. Many people, there's different people and they care about different things.
All right. Hey, thank you so much, Leon. Appreciate your time.
All right. Thank you.
All right. My colleague, Brett Hall, he's down at the Performing Arts Center where the debate's going to be held in just a little bit. Brett, how's it going down there?
Well, people were arriving the last 30 minutes or so, although we haven't had many people arriving recently, but we've seen a lot of the big names in Virginia politics. We saw Senator Louise Lucas, who is also the Senate Pro Tem, as well as the chair of the powerful Finance Committee. She has arrived with her daughter, former Portsmouth Councilwoman Lisa Lucas Burke. We saw Mayor Kenny Alexander, Speaker of the House Don Scott, as well as a former Republican Congresswoman Thelma Drake and former Governor Bob McDonnell, also on the Republican side. So that's actually one big difference from the debate last year with Senator Tim Kaine and Hung Kao, who's now the Undersecretary for the U.S. Navy. There weren't many Republican names that came to actually support him in person. A very different case this year. Another thing we are waiting to see, and I've heard a lot about, is will there be a moment tonight? Both sides want to make a moment. What do I mean by that? Well, in 2021, momentum shifted with the debate between now Governor Glenn Youngkin and former Governor Terry McAuliffe when it came to the topic of schools. Specifically, there was a lot of talk about what type of education when it comes to race is being taught in schools. That was a big topic in 2021 coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic. And Governor McAuliffe at the time said he does not believe parents should be telling schools what to teach their kids. Some people thought he said it very smugly, and that was a big turning point. And many Republicans I spoke with say that was the moment where the momentum went to Youngkin's side and he was able to be victorious in his campaign. Will there be that moment tonight? I know, speaking with a Republican strategist, Earle-Sears' team, they want to try to see if they can get Spanberger to be a part of that moment. Spanberger, though, of course, very different than Terry McAuliffe, but Spanberger likely also wants to prompt a moment from Earle-Sears. We've seen some of the confrontations on network that Earle-Sears has had with different interviewers that have gone viral that the Spanberger campaign has pounced on. So it's all about finding a moment. That's what the candidates want, and of course it's what the people coming here want to see as well. Outside the Wilder Center, which will have the debate starting in about 20 minutes, Andy and Aisha.
All right, Brett Hall joining us live from Norfolk State. Brett, we'll see you later tonight. And we have much more to come as we count down to debate night in Virginia. When we come back, a political analyst from Old Dominion University joins us to give us his thoughts.
It's stand or sit.
He's supposed to be sitting right here, but I'm just trying to make sure this is the right chair. Okay. Can you get them a mic check?
Mic check. 1, 2, 3. Mic check.
Welcome back as we continue our countdown to debate night in Virginia. We're about 15 minutes away from the showdown between Republican Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earle-Sears and former Democratic Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger.
Right now, we are going to bring in our political analyst to break down what's at stake tonight. Joining us now is Dr. Jesse Richmond from Old Dominion University. Doctor, thank you for being here. Dr. Richmond, first question. Number one, what does Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earle-Sears need to do to change the political tide in a race where polls show her trailing?
She needs to have, as our analyst on the show was saying before, she needs to get lucky. I'm not sure that there's anything at this point that the Sears campaign can do on its own without some kind of misstep from the Spanberger campaign. Also needs to have a consistent performance, charismatic, connecting with people.
Now, the big October surprise, the text in August 2022 from Lieutenant Governor candidate Jay Jones, fantasizing about shooting then House Speaker Todd Gilbert in the head, 2 shots to the head. It's become a big issue, big moment, okay? Then sending that text to a Republican delegate. How should each candidate handle this question?
I think for Spanberger, it's how much can you distance yourself? As much as possible, I think. You don't want to be connected with that. You want to be clear that you see this as reprehensible. And from the standpoint of Earle-Sears, you want Spanberger to trip in that distancing. You want to make clear that you stand for protecting the rule of law. You stand for everybody having their right to speak in a democracy and people not being shot.
And what to you will indicate who won this debate?
Well, we'll see. I think with both candidates, it comes down in part to how well they portray themselves. Do they effectively answer the questions? Do they convince viewers, especially undecided, that this is a candidate who cares about their issues, who is dedicated to serving Virginia effectively?
Now, in our Emerson College poll, 66% think that threats to democracy is very important. Remembering what's just happened with Jay Jones, who's winning on that issue now?
So I think that Jay Jones helps the Republican narrative on this. Both parties have narratives that have evidence behind them about the things the other party has done, or supporters of the other party, maybe more particularly, have done that are threatening to democracy. And this plays into the Republican narrative on that.
Do you expect either candidate to avoid any specific topics?
Well, we shall see. The Earle-Sears campaign has tried to create challenges for Spanberger on the bathrooms issues.
Progressive issues.
Progressive issues. I expect she'll try to do something with that, though the challenge there is that those aren't the issues that are necessarily reading highest in polls in terms of people's concerns.
In fact, that's one of the hits on her campaign. She's been talking about boys and girls bathrooms when the real issues important to most of the people, economy, housing, education, health, has her campaign so far made a strategic error, and that's the reason why they've fallen so far behind.
You know, there's certainly an argument to make for that. You have to find ways to increase the salience of the issues you care about, where you think you have an edge, but you also have to address and try to neutralize the advantages of your opponent on issues where you may not be as strong, but you've got to address those effectively.
And what is each candidate's biggest vulnerability, would you say?
So I think a challenge for Sears is to make a effective connection with voters. I think that part of what we've seen in recent periods is the ad spend from the Spanberger campaign. Some of these ads have been very effective. And she needs to effectively, despite her long career in Virginia politics, in a sense she has to reaffirm and introduce herself to voters.
Quickly, what does each candidate have to do in order to win over the undecided voters? What do they have to do, both of them?
I think Earle-Sears has to find a way to win over those suburban voters who were crucial to Youngkin's campaign victory. Spanberger needs to maintain the kind of picture we have, at least in the polling currently, a relatively centrist campaign appealing to a relatively broad coalition of voters.
Okay, thank you. We'll be checking back with the good doctor. Thank you very much from ODU, Jesse Richmond. And we're coming back.
That's right. We're going to come back and take a look at the polling ahead of this debate. We'll check in with 10 on Your Side's Capitol Bureau reporter Tyler Englander with that part of the story. Welcome back to our countdown to debate night in Virginia. We are just a few minutes away from the start of the showdown between former Democratic Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger and Republican Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earle-Sears.
An Emerson College poll sponsored by our parent company, Nexstar, shows Abigail Spanberger holds a 10-point lead in the race for governor. Capitol Bureau reporter Tyler Englander breaks it all down. The results, here they are.
The latest Emerson College poll found that 52% of likely voters say they'll vote for Democrat Abigail Spanberger in the Virginia governor's race. That's compared to 42% of likely voters who say they'll vote for Republican nominee Winsome Earle-Sears. New polling shows with early voting already underway, Democrat Abigail Spanberger has a 10-point lead over Republican Winsome Earle-Sears in the race for governor.
The direction of this election seems to be going the way of the Democrats, and there is less and less time for the Sears campaign to change that dynamic.
The poll finding that Spanberger enjoys a 19-point lead with voters who consider themselves independents.
You have an unpopular president in the White House. You have a state and a commonwealth where a lot of the voters are inclined to be worried about the economy and want some change. They can't vote against that president, but they can vote for a governor.
On the issues, more than 70% of Virginians say the economy, education, and healthcare are very important when it comes to how they'll decide who to vote for.
If Earle-Sears can't convince Virginia voters that she can steer Virginia's economy in a direction away from what Republicans are doing at the national level, it's just hard for her to find something else to land on as the case to vote for her.
And Tyler Englander joins us now live. Tyler, thank you so much for being with us. The polling seems to be in Spanberger's favor. What are some of the numbers in that are really standing out to you?
Yeah, Andy, Aisha, thanks for having me. Yeah, we've seen a bunch of polls in this Virginia governor's race between Abigail Spanberger and Winsome Earle-Sears, and a few outliers here and there either direction. But most of them show the Democratic nominee, former Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger, with an 8, 10, 12-point lead. Now, this is really a chance, this debate, the only time that Winsome Earle-Sears, the Republican nominee, can try and bite into that lead a little bit. I think she's gotten some help given what happened with Jay Jones, the Democratic nominee for Attorney General. This is the chance for Winsome Earle-Sears to try and really change the fortunes. Now, it's interesting. We haven't seen a poll since those Jay Jones text messages came out, but this is a chance, an hour on live television for Winsome Earle-Sears and Abigail Spanberger to explain their visions to Virginia voters, and perhaps the last chance for Winsome Earle-Sears to kind of change fortunes, if you believe what the polling says.
Tyler, Andy Fox here, and I want to congratulate you on getting the exclusive interview with Jay Jones after all of this started breaking. I have to ask you, when you interviewed him, what was his persona? Where was he, I guess, mentally? Was he seem broken? Did he seem confident? Did he see like he had a grasp on where he was and what he was doing?
Yeah, you know, the thing I've kind of reflected on, that interview was about a week ago, it was last Friday. The thing I've reflected on is just how big a deal Jay Jones thought it was for him to drive an hour and 45 minutes. He was here in Norfolk, and he drove all the way to Richmond on a Friday night to ensure that he had a chance to apologize. You know, it's not for me to say whether his apology was authentic or it wasn't. I think that's something for Virginia voters. They need to watch the interview and take away their own conclusions. You know, it was an interesting interview. I asked Jay Jones several questions about those text messages. He just repeatedly apologized, and it's up to Virginians to decide whether that apology was good or not.
Okay, Tyler, good job and congratulations. Great reporting. Thanks for watching the countdown to debate night in Virginia. The showdown is coming up next.
It's debate night in Virginia, a historic election.
Virginia needs a governor who will not casually dismiss these threats to our economy.
Setting the tone for voters across the nation.
Her plan is to make Virginia a sanctuary state, not on my watch.
Will Democrats take over the Commonwealth? Or will Republicans remain in the governor's mansion? Tonight, hear from Democrat Abigail Spanberger.
I know we need to get to work to lower child care costs on day one.
And Republican Winsome Earle-Sears.
I'm always going to be for lower taxes, no matter what.
On the issues that matter most to you.
I understand the purpose of taxes, but when is enough enough?
I really don't want a data center over here.
In their only live televised debate, Democrat Abigail Spanberger and Republican Winsome Earle-Sears take center stage to win your vote as Virginia's first female governor. From your local election headquarters, live from Norfolk State University, this is the Virginia Governor's Debate.
Good evening and welcome to tonight's debate. I'm Deanna Albritton, anchor for WRIC in Richmond.
And I'm Tom Shad, anchor at Wavy TV and Fox 43 here in Norfolk, Virginia. We have a live audience watching along with you tonight. You're able to watch the debate in every television market in every county in Virginia, from Roanoke to Norfolk and from Northern Virginia to Richmond.
But before we get to the questions, let's go over the rules. You will each have 60 seconds to answer a question. Rebuttals and follow-ups get 30 seconds. Candidates, when time is up, you'll hear this bell. Each candidate will also have 30 seconds for a closing statement. And with that, thanks for joining us, candidates. Ms. Earle-Sears, you're first. Tom.
Thank you, Deanna. We want to begin tonight with a topic that may be the only thing that unites all residents of the Commonwealth of Virginia, the dreaded car tax. Ms. Earle-Sears, you have said that you will axe the car tax in your first year in office, but you will have to replace the revenue for local governments. So how will you come up with just over $3 billion every year? You'll have 60 seconds.
Yes, thank you for having me, and it's a wonderful time to be here, this momentous occasion. This is my former place that I actually represented, Norfolk State University. So on the car tax, we could have gotten rid of that this year because Governor Youngkin put it in his budget that we could get rid of it, but unfortunately the Democrats decided against that, and so my opponent, she says she's going to get rid of it too, but she's going to have to ask her side of the aisle how to do that. So we had the money, we can do it, but really what I want to ask, this first question is, Abigail, when are you going to take Jay Jones and say to him, you must leave the race? He has said that he wants to murder his political opponent, and not only that, but his political opponent's children, 2 and 5 years old.
Ms. Earle-Sears, we're going to get to that question in a moment, but first we're talking about the car tax.
I'd like her to answer the question.
We're talking about the car tax right now.
Well, that was still my time.
Yes, but I want to get an answer from you. How would you come up with just over $3 billion a year for the car tax? I'll give you 15 seconds to clarify.
Yes. So as I said, we have the money. We have run budget surpluses every year that we've been in office. Over $10 billion, $9 billion of which we've given back to the Virginia taxpayer. That's serious money, and the taxpayers want that. And when I am governor, I'm going to have a form that says, check here if you want to pay more in taxes. But my opponent needs to answer about Jay Jones.
Your time's up, Ms. Earle-Sears. Ms. Spanberger, you've said that you'd like to get rid of the car tax. Will you make a commitment here tonight that you will make that a priority, and where do you intend to find the money for local governments every year if that tax is eliminated? You have 60 seconds.
The car tax is the most hated tax in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and in fact, that has been the case for many, many years. My husband, Adam, who is here this evening, actually wrote a paper in high school about the hated car tax. And year after year, many people make promises about getting rid of the car tax, but without a plan to do it. Unfortunately, my opponent went legislature had the opportunity to lower the car tax by 10% and voted against it. Now, in the 4 years that she has been the lieutenant governor, she hasn't made the effort or endeavored to get rid of this tax. And in fact, I will work with anyone,
please.
To Democrats, Republicans, local and state officials to finally get rid of this most dreaded tax. In fact, it requires significant planning and cooperation. But I have a history of getting rid of hated taxes during my time in Congress. I repealed with bipartisan support a unfair tax on firefighters, police, and public servants. I have gotten rid of a hated tax in the past by building a coalition, and I will do it again.
So, Ms. Spanberger, how would you come up with just over $3 billion to fund that car tax for local governments?
It requires bringing people together, Democrats and Republicans, to put any and all possible paths forward on the table. You are correct that we need to ensure that the loss of the car tax doesn't mean loss of funding to our public schools and to our first responders.
Let her clarify.
And so in working together, we will work to not only repeal this tax, which of course also requires a constitutional amendment, but ensure our communities are funded.
Ms. Spanberger, your time is up.
It doesn't require a constitutional
amendment. We're going to move on to the next
just
topic.
A decision.
Deanna.
Thanks, Tom. Our next question is about the temperature and tone of political speech. The first example has been shaping the race for governor and attorney general for the past week. You both will have a chance for rebuttal. Democratic Attorney General nominee Jay Jones admits he sent text messages to a colleague referencing former Republican House Speaker Todd Gilbert. Here's what he wrote.
Jones. 3 people, 2 bullets. Gilbert, Hitler, Pol Pot. Gilbert gets 2 bullets to the head. Spoiler, put Gilbert in the crew with the 2 worst people you know, and he receives both bullets every time. Colleague. Jay, please stop. Jones. LOL, okay. I mean, do I think Todd and Jennifer are evil and that they're breeding little fascists? Yes. Colleague. You were talking about hoping Jennifer Gilbert's children would die. Jones. Yes, I've told you this before. Only when people feel pain personally do they move on policy.
Jay Jones has apologized and says he takes full responsibility for those messages. Ms. Spanberger, you have called the comments disgusting and said you condemn violence. The question for you tonight is, were you aware of these messages before they were released publicly, and will you continue to endorse Jay Jones as the next Attorney General of Virginia? You have 60 seconds.
The comments that Jay Jones made are absolutely abhorrent. I denounced them when I learned of them, and I will denounce them every opportunity I get. As a mother, as a public servant, as a candidate for governor, I denounce them. And it is important that candidates always denounce violence on no matter which side of the aisle. Violence, violent rhetoric, we should always be focused and forceful in our denouncement of it.
Are you going to tell him
and
to get
importantly, my opponent, unfortunately, only denounces violence when her side is the target. I hope
like that,
into
Abigail.
the future she will endeavor to denounce violent rhetoric and violence no matter who the victim. And tonight, Lieutenant Governor Earle-Sears, I will say, you routinely referred to me as your enemy.
Just please give her a chance to
You routinely
respond.
refer to me as your enemy. I'm not your enemy. You are not my enemy. We are political opponents, and tonight voters are here to listen to the policy differences that we have. So as we move forward, we must continue to set a good example for all of our children.
Thank you, Ms. Spanberger. I didn't hear an answer there on the endorsement issue, so I want to just make sure. Will you continue to endorse Jay Jones to be the next Attorney General of Virginia? And were you aware of these text messages before they released? You have 30 seconds.
In fact, it appears that it was the those who released the text messages and held them for years. So the public was unaware who had knowledge of these text messages for many hours.
What did you do about it?
I learned of these text messages the day that they came out, and I denounced them as soon as I learned of them.
She denounces murder.
And
Earle-Sears,
importantly, at this point, as we move forward, the voters now have this information that was withheld for them,
You're running to
presumably for
Ms.
political
Earle-Sears, please.
reasons. But the voters now have the information, and it is up to voters to make an individual choice based on this information.
Ms. Spanberger, I understand what you're saying about the voters, but for you yourself, do you still continue to endorse Jay Jones? 15 seconds, yes or no?
We are all running our individual races. I believe my opponent has said that about her lieutenant governor nominee.
Ms. Earle-Sears,
And it's up to every person to make their own decision. I am running my race to serve Virginia, and that is what I intend to do.
Thank you, Ms. Spanberger. We just want to clarify, what you're saying is that as of now, you still endorse Jay Jones as Attorney General.
I'm saying as of now, it's up to every voter to make their own individual decision. I am running for governor. I am accountable for the words that I say, for the acts that I take, for the policies that I have put out.
Thank you.
I am responsible for the policies I put out and the work I will endeavor to do tirelessly for the people of Virginia.
Thank you, Ms. Spanberger. Ms. Earle-Sears, before we get to rebuttals, because we will get to rebuttals, we have a question for you. While there is no equivalency, this next example does speak to the divided nature of our country. During the Charlie Kirk Memorial, President Trump said, quote, "I hate my opponent and I don't want the best for them." Is there a place for that kind of political speech? You have 60 seconds.
Well, I think as everybody knows, I'm a Christian. I'm a Christian before I'm a Republican, and I'm required to forgive people. And it's hard sometimes when somebody has abused you, etc., but it's something you must do, because not to forgive is almost like, as someone said, you drink poison thinking that it's going to affect the other person. And I want to live a decent life, and I don't want to not have peace in my life. And so as I've said before, I would not say that. So that's why I'm wondering why my opponent won't say, beyond it's abhorrent and disgusting, why she won't say it is not okay and that he must leave the race, because Jay Jones advocated the murder, Abigail, the murder of a man, a former speaker, as well as his children who were 2 and 5 years old. You have little girls. What would it take him pulling the trigger? Is that what would do it? And then you would say he needs to get out of the race? Abigail, you have nothing to say? Abigail, what if he said it about your 3 children? Is that when you would say he should get out of the race, Abigail? You're running to be governor.
Ms. Earle-Sears, I know you're saying that you would not personally say this, but do you think still that there is that place for that kind of rhetoric, the example that we gave, even coming from others? You have 30 seconds.
So I'm responsible for my behavior, and what I've just said, I wouldn't say that. I would not speak that way. Look, I'm from a third world country. I was born in Jamaica, and when I was 10 years old, I saw that kind of political violence, which is why I'm asking my opponent to please ask him to get out of the race. Have some political courage. What you have done is you are taking political calculations about your future as governor. Well, as governor, you have to make hard choices, and that means telling Jay Jones to leave the race. I have seen what it means when people are shot in the streets and thrown in the back of cars just for political purposes. I don't want to see that in America. America must never be that place, and Abigail needs to say something.
Ms. Earle-Sears, you're out of time there. We do have one more follow-up question for you before we get to rebuttals. One more question for you. This is on the topic of endorsements. President Trump has endorsed the Republican incumbent Attorney General. Do you need Trump's endorsement to win the race in Virginia? You have 30 seconds.
So I will take all endorsements, including the president, and I am working very hard for the people of Virginia. I believe in lower taxes. The people want that. My opponent, unfortunately, she's already said she's going to raise taxes. She's going to raise energy rates, Well, she's already voted that way because, well, that's all she wants is solar and wind. Well, if you look outside, the sun isn't shining and the breeze isn't blowing. And then what, Abigail? What will you do? What will you do? You're smirking. And you know that the people of the Southwest have a lot of energy issues.
Ms. Earle-Sears, we need to get to rebuttals. So, Ms. Spanberger, you have 30 seconds to respond.
I think in her response to the question that you asked, my opponent proved my point, which is when violent rhetoric comes from her side of the aisle, she refuses to denounce it. The statement that you read from President Donald Trump was violent rhetoric that she refuses to denounce, and this is why I say you are not
Earle-Sears,
my enemy.
She has her 30
and
seconds.
I wish you would stop
murder.
using language like that. But I am also glad that she began speaking about issues of affordability because as we are talking about issues of affordability, I am the only candidate on stage who's put forth a plan to actually lower costs for Virginians.
Ms. Earle-Sears, now your turn for a rebuttal. Yes. You have 30 seconds.
So what Abigail has just said is a lie, that she's the only one who has affordability. Please go to SpanbergerLies.com and check that out. I don't understand why you just can't come forward and say he needs to go. I mean, we're talking about murder. We're talking about someone's life being taken from them. Have you nothing to say about that? Are you not going to address it? Really, you can't go any further. You're a governor. You're supposed to stand up for all the people. Are you saying political murder is all right?
Ms. Spanberger, I want to give you a chance to respond.
I have a rebuttal to that?
Yes.
Once
you
again,
have 30 seconds.
I have denounced political violence, political rhetoric, no matter who is leading the charge. When given the opportunity, Lieutenant Governor Earle-Sears, you have not done the same.
No matter who is leading the charge on
And so when
what?
it is important that all of us set a better example.
And so
importantly,
no matter
water
who
fountain
is providing
the comments that are advocating
but it's difficult for us to hear.
She has no courage. You cannot be governor. No courage.
The audience can't hear when you're talking over each other, so we just want to make sure that we limit that so people can hear.
She has no courage.
We're going to the next topic
now.
Yes,
we are moving on to the next topic with Tom on federal workers.
Thank you, Deanna. It's been more than a week since federal lawmakers allowed the government to shut down with more than 150,000 government workers. Virginia is facing the brunt of the impact. So, Ms. Earle-Sears, knowing its impact on Virginia, if you were governor now, would you ask the president to use his power to work with Democrats to reopen the government? You have 60 seconds.
So my opponent all summer long has been playing political football with federal workers by trying to say that she loves them more than anyone else. Well, let me tell you what love looks like. It looks like Abigail calling Senators Kaine and Warner and telling them, go back, do your job, and vote against the government shutdown. We only need eight Democratic senators. That's all we need. And we cannot find 8. And yet, we can find 2 in Virginia. When are you going to publicly say to Senators Kaine and Warner, go and do your job and keep federal workers working? That's the way you stop the shutdown, because right now they're having to work, and especially our military, without any pay. I'm a United States Marine veteran, and it is definitely hard, especially in the enlisted ranks, to work without pay. You can do something about that. You're the one who's been talking about all that love. Well, show love, keep them in their jobs.
Ms. Earle-Sears, the question, though, that I'm looking for, the answer to is, would you ask the president, if you were governor, to use his power to work with Democrats to reopen the government? 15 seconds to clarify.
So the president has already said that he would do that. But you know, before anything gets to the president, it's in the Senate right now. The House Republicans have voted, and it's in the Senate. And all we need for it to get to the president so the shutdown stops is 8 Senate Democrats. That's just it. 8 Senate Democrats, and we cannot find any because they're playing political football, as you have been, Abigail, all this time. Love is a verb. It's a show me. It's a doing. Love is not a shutdown. When are you going to ask Senators Kaine and Warner to please keep federal workers working.
All right, we're going to go to Ms. Spanberger next on this one. Knowing the shutdown's impact on Virginia, if you were governor now, would you urge the 2 Democratic senators to vote to reopen the government until a deal can be worked out with Republicans? You have 60 seconds.
Well, importantly, when I was in Congress, when I entered Congress, I entered during the longest government shutdown in history. And 2 weeks into my time in Congress, I went to the White House. I sat down in the Situation Room with a group of Democrats and Republicans and President Trump, urging him to come to the table, urging him to make a deal. That is how we started the path towards ending the government shutdown, with leadership from the president. The current lieutenant governor of Virginia has not stood up for Virginia workers, because right now, at this moment, when Virginia's federal workforce and contractors and communities across the Commonwealth are suffering because of this government shutdown, it is only increasing the challenge that they are facing after months and months of the attacks from this White House under DOGE. The entirety of that time, my opponent has made light of federal workers losing their jobs, saying it's not a big deal,
so just to clarify,
and that everyone loses their jobs.
Ms. Spanberger, time is up, but just to clarify then, you would not urge the 2 Democratic senators to work with Republicans to reopen the government?
To clarify, I would encourage everyone, our Democratic senators, our Democratic House members, our Republican House members, to work together and drive
Ms. Earle-Sears,
an effort
please. Thank you. Continue.
to come back to the table. Everyone from Virginia, the most impacted state in a time of shutdown, as our communities are suffering after months of DOGE and attacks on our federal workforce.
Ms. Spanberger.
Everyone in Virginia should be coming together and urging the president to restart negotiations.
We are going to move on to the next topic, which is data centers, and my colleague
Am
Deanna.
I not going to get a rebuttal? She's attacked me. Am I not going to get a rebuttal?
I'll give you 15 seconds.
Thank you very much. So you've heard a lot of words from my opponent, and she's talked about DOGE, and you know, I'm the one who started a men's prison ministry. Of course I care about people. It was one of the best things I did. We've created over 265,000 jobs. I know what it's like to lose a job. How could I make light of it? But my opponent has cut and spliced my words so that it will look like I did not care.
Ms. Earle-Sears, time is up. Next topic, data centers with my colleague Deanna.
Thanks, Tom. So data centers are expanding across Virginia, increasing power demand and expected to raise energy bills even more for all Virginians. Ms. Spanberger, what is your plan to make sure data centers have the power they need and Virginians don't get stuck with the bill? You have 60 seconds.
Absolutely. So data centers are coming to Virginia, and many localities want to welcome them. And it's important that they pay their fair share. And as governor, I will ensure that data centers pay their fair share. But we have a challenge looking towards the future as it relates to our energy generation here in the Commonwealth. We are the largest net importer of energy in the country. And that requires real leadership in contending with what is an impending energy crisis. And unfortunately, as we see an impending energy crisis, my opponent has supported efforts from the Trump administration to take millions and millions of dollars of energy investments away from Virginia. This is all the while that energy costs continue to rise for Virginians. That is why in my affordability plan, I laid out plans to reduce the cost of energy here in the Commonwealth.
Ms. Spanberger, as a follow-up, you stated the data centers must pay their fair share. So what does that look like exactly to you? Are you committing that to Virginians not seeing more price hikes? You have 30 seconds.
Absolutely. So importantly, there is currently an SCC case moving forward. And so pending the results of that case as it moves forward, it may require action within the General Assembly to ensure that large utility users like data centers are paying their fair share for the energy that they consume. For anyone who wants to view the further plans that I have to reduce energy, it is at affordablevirginia.com.
Thank you, Ms. Spanberger. Ms. Earle-Sears, what is your idea for offsetting the high costs of data centers, energy demands, and preventing additional rate hikes for Virginians? You have 60 seconds.
So the Virginia Clean Economy Act, when it was passed, Every single Democrat voted for that. Every single one. And by the way, my opponent, Abigail Spanberger, has supported it. Well, let me tell you what it did. Speaking of no energy, it took 11,000 megawatts of power immediately off the grid, Abigail, without anything to substitute for it. And all you want, again, is wind and solar. Well, you know, it's that little thing called the technology revolution that's still happening. And it's that little thing called the, industrial revolution that's still happening. Businesses need power. What are you going to do about that? Well, let me tell you what we are doing. We have started in the Southwest a micro-reactor program to see how we can bring energy to the Southwest and make it a regional energy hub, as a matter of fact.
Ms. Earle-Sears, you're out of time, but I do want to follow up there. So the question was, what is your plan for offsetting those high costs of data centers' energy demands? What is your plan for making sure Virginians don't get stuck with the bills? So 30 seconds.
So what we need is an all-of-the-above approach to energy. We need clean coal, we need oil, we need nuclear, we need natural gas, and we need, renewables. My opponent's only plan is solar and wind. Well, what happens when the sun goes down? There is nothing.
Ms. Earle-Sears, we do need to move on to the next question.
All right, thank you, Deanna. We have a question tonight from a Norfolk State University student. Let's listen.
Young people are leaving Virginia for more affordable housing and better job opportunities. What initiatives or policies would you implement to make Virginia a more attractive place for young professionals to live, work, and build their future?
Ms. Earle-Sears, we'll start with you. How do you respond to the students' economic concerns?
Yes, so what we have done in Virginia, and what we're continuing to do, is we're bringing jobs here because we want our children who are born here, raised here, we want them to stay here. And we want them to do very well because we want them to create generational wealth, and a good education will do that. But when the education happens, they also need the jobs. And I don't know if you've been seeing, but we have created over 15,000 new business startups. Never existed until we came into office. New business, high-paying startups. And then we have created, as I've said before, over 265,000 jobs, and we have another 225,000 job openings right now. And I was just with the Governor Youngkin, out in Charlottesville, where Afton Scientific announced 200 more jobs.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Spanberger, what economic policies or initiatives would you implement to make Virginia an attractive place for young professionals to live, work, and build their futures? You have 60 seconds.
Importantly, I want to thank the students of Norfolk State for welcoming us to this campus, to the faculty and the administration. Thank you for hosting this incredible event here. And the young woman raised an incredibly important point, which is we attract people to our universities from across the country, and we should want, and I do, and as governor, I will want to ensure that when they graduate, they will stay in Virginia to start a business, to start a family, and to start their career. The challenges, though, that she mentioned are housing costs and affordability issues. In fact, during the time that the lieutenant governor has been in office, the cost of buying a house has gone up 18%. The cost of renting a house has gone up 14%, with just 11% increase even just this last year, the third highest in the whole country. And my opponent so frequently talks about job creation. Virginia has had 7 months this year of rising unemployment. The challenges are real, and Virginians need someone who will put Virginia first.
Unemployment numbers are.
Okay, we had a very spirited debate thus far.
That.
Excuse me, Ms. Sears. We've had a very spirited debate thus far, and now we're going to shift gears, and my colleague Deanna will take it from here.
Yes, we want to see where maybe there's some shared common ground. Ms. Spanberger, what quality or qualities of your opponent do you admire? You have 30 seconds.
I admire her faith that she puts into action through her time at the prison ministry that she frequently talks about, and I admire her service to our country, particularly as someone who chose to be an American and chose to serve. I think those are admirable traits, and frankly, what makes our country and our Commonwealth a special place, that people the world over come to our country to become Americans, to serve in the military and in elected office.
Thank you, Ms. Spanberger. A handshake. Well, Ms. Earle-Sears, with that, what quality or qualities of your opponent do you admire? You have 30 seconds.
Yes, from what I've seen, I believe that she is a devoted mom. I truly believe that. And that she is a daughter who loves her parents very much. And I do believe that she cares.
Thank you, Ms. Earle-Sears. Well, we have many more topics up for debate tonight, including transgender issues and reproductive rights. We will be back after this quick break.
As we welcome you back, a hot topic in Virginia's schools, and for this question, you will both have a chance for a rebuttal. Ms. Spanberger, we're going to start with you. Focusing on a K-12 school system, should transgender girls who are biological males be allowed to use girls' bathrooms and play on girls' sports teams? You have 60 seconds.
I'm a mother of 3 daughters in Virginia public schools, and nothing is more important to me than their safety and their experience in schools. I'm also a former federal agent, and I work to investigate crimes against children. And so nothing is more important to me than the safety of all of our children. And that work, in part, has earned me the endorsement of Virginia's Police Benevolent Association.
Tell Steve
Ms. Earle-Sears,
not
Ms. Spanberger is talking. Please let her finish.
On issues related to what's happening in our schools and each individual community, I think it's important that we have parents and teachers and administrators making decisions about their individual schools, not politicians. And if we are talking about the safety of our children, I would ask why my opponent continues to support efforts to defund public safety, an effort carried on continually by this administration.
Ms. Spanberger, once again, the question was, should transgender girls who are biological males be allowed to use girls' bathrooms and play on girls' sports teams in K-12? You have 15 seconds to clarify.
In cases across Virginia, I think it's incumbent upon parents and educators and administrators in each local community to make decisions locally.
That's what this is about.
Ms. Earle-Sears?
There should never be nude men in locker
Oh my
rooms.
goodness, we finally have her saying that, but you voted for that.
Ms.
Have you
Earle-Sears,
finally
Ms.
said
Earle-Sears,
that
you are
now?
just intruding on
Are
time
we in
here.
agreement now? Are you
Ms.
going to
Earle-Sears,
tell?
this is Ms. Spanberger's time. I have a follow-up question for Ms. Spanberger. Would you rescind the Youngkin administration policy requiring boys and girls to use bathrooms aligning with their biological sex? You have 30 seconds.
My priority would be to ensure that local communities, importantly parents and teachers and educators, are able to work together to meet the unique needs of each school and each community. And that is important. And I say that as a mother of 3 daughters in Virginia public schools.
Exactly.
And as someone who used to investigate crimes against children. The way that we keep our children safe is by ensuring they are safe in schools, which includes funding law enforcement and public safety.
But Ms. Spanberger, the question was, would you rescind the Youngkin administration policy requiring boys and girls to use bathrooms aligning with their biological sex? You have 15 seconds to clarify that question.
Yes,
and my answer is that in each local community, decisions should be made between parents and educators and teachers in each community. It shouldn't be dictated by politicians.
Please don't interrupt. We're coming to you next.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Spanberger. Ms. Earle-Sears, you say that you do not support biological males identifying as females playing in girls' sports and have pledged to sign legislation restricting bathrooms by birth sex. Does this position discriminate against transgender girls? You have 60 seconds.
I'm not for discriminating against anyone. What I'm saying is just very plain common sense. And I'm going to answer the question my opponent refused to answer, which is simply this. I will not rescind the governor's executive order. We know that girls want to have privacy. It's really that simple. And my opponent will not answer the question because she voted for men nude in girls' locker rooms, in bathrooms, and in girls' sports. She will refuse to protect our girls in Title IX, which is simply, an opportunity for girls to have their safe space. This is not hard. Are you going to change in a gym where men are nude in the locker rooms? Are you going to do that, Abigail?
Ms. Earle-Sears.
I don't think you will. What about your girl children if they came home crying and said that
Ms.
there was a male in the locker room?
With you.
What would you do?
You will both have a chance to rebut, too, so I want to make sure that you both understand that. Ms. Earle-Sears, a follow-up question now. You said in supporting that bathroom legislation that this is, quote, a safety issue.
It is.
Are transgender students a safety threat? Yes or no, and why? You have 30 seconds.
I'm sorry, how did you ask that?
Are transgender students a safety threat? Yes or no, and why? You have 30 seconds.
So we know that biological men are larger in strength than women. We understand this. This is biology. If you look at football teams, you can see the difference between males and females. This is not hard. And that's why I'm asking my opponent, if your little girl comes home and said she was forced to undress in a locker room with a biological boy, what would you say? She's crying. What would you say? Are you not going to answer?
Ms. Earle-Sears, now we're going to go to opportunity for rebuttal now. And Ms. Spanberger, we're going to start with you. 30 seconds.
My opponent was asked about her record of discrimination, and importantly, my opponent has previously said that she does not think that gay couples should be allowed to marry. She has said that she is, quote unquote, morally opposed to same-sex marriage. My opponent has also previously said that she thinks it's okay for someone to be fired from their job for being gay. That's discrimination.
Ms. Spanberger, your time is up. And now, Ms. Earle-Sears, it's your turn for rebuttal.
Yes.
You have 30 seconds.
Yes. So again, I want you to go to SpanbergerLies.com. Listen, she's talk about defunding and all that. You know who voted to defund the police? You did. When you voted for the Justice and Policing Act. You voted for that, and you took money from the PAC that said we must defund the police and get rid of their qualified immunity. When are you going to give back that money? Thousands of dollars. I will not defund the police or get rid of their qualified immunity.
We have other topics to get to. We're going to move on now to reproductive rights. Deanna?
Thanks, Tom. Abortion is legal in Virginia through the second trimester with limited third trimester exceptions. There's also a push to codify abortion access in our state constitution. Ms. Earle-Sears, you have supported both a 15-week and 6-week abortion limit. As governor, what would you advocate for? You have 60 seconds.
So my position is that the Commonwealth needs to come together and figure out where it wants to be. It's not going to be my view. It's going to be a view of the majority. My opponent, on the other hand, has the extremist view, which is abortion up until the very hour that the baby could be born, up until the very minute. And so you would have a baby aborted on the table. What do we do then, Abigail?
Ms. Earle-Sears.
What do we do with a full live baby aborted on the minute it could be born?
Ms. Earle-Sears, I need you to ask the question that I'm asking. I'm asking the questions here, and so I want to know about what would you advocate for in terms of a limit. I know that you just said it's not about your view, but you will have veto powers if you became governor. So what would you be willing to support as governor?
So you have 30 seconds. So I've answered the question. I've said it's not my view. It's going to be what the majority of Virginians want. And by the way, there's a constitutional amendment, and the voters will make that decision.
Thank you, Ms. Earle-Sears. Ms. Spanberger, you say you want to keep Virginia the last bastion of reproductive freedom in the South. Do you support any limits on abortion? You have 60 seconds.
When the Dobbs decision was made, it was very quickly clear that state after state would move to restrict abortion access, as my opponent has previously supported. In states where they further restricted abortion access, women have died. Women pregnant with very wanted children, women with ectopic pregnancies were sent home, and women have died. If my opponent were to become governor, that is what she would inflict upon Virginia.
Ms. Earle-Sears,
I support the Roe
Virginia's voters
standard.
Cannot hear if you're talking over Ms. Spanberger.
I support
Please give her time.
the Roe standard. I support the constitutional amendment that is moving forward that makes clear the
Ms. Earle-Sears, it's difficult to hear Ms. Spanberger if you're talking over her.
I support the Roe standard, which is what this codification of a constitutional amendment moving forward would be. That's what I will support as governor, though I will not have a vote on it. I will support it. But importantly, my opponent has threatened murder to women who have had abortions. That is not the type of leadership we need here in the Commonwealth.
You're out of time. I just want to follow up.
I need a rebuttal.
Ms. Earle-Sears, I have to follow up right now because it was difficult for me to hear Ms. Spanberger, and I need to make sure that I have clarity on her answer. So just to be clear, are there any limits that you support in terms of abortion access, including for minors? You have 30 seconds.
I support the current laws within Virginia, which include limits on minors obtaining abortions, which include limits after the second trimester. I support those, the current laws here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and that is what is moving forward as a constitutional amendment here in the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Thank you, Ms. Spanberger. We are now going to move on to immigration.
I thought I was going to get an opportunity to rebut.
We're moving on to other topics. We have a lot to cover tonight, Ms. Earle-Sears, so we'll get to you in a moment on a different topic. For now, it's immigration and public safety. We're going to start with Governor Glenn Youngkin has tasked Virginia State Police with helping ICE to remove people living in the country illegally. Ms. Spanberger, we're going to start with you. You've said using local and state police for ICE raids is dangerous. Are there any situations in which you would support local law enforcement assisting ICE? You have 60 seconds.
Absolutely. I'm a former federal agent. I used to work narcotics and money laundering cases. I regularly worked on task force arrests and search warrants in partnership with local and state police as a federal law enforcement officer. Importantly, anytime there is a warrant, an arrest warrant, a search warrant to detain someone, absolutely local law enforcement, local resources should and must be employed. That is why, as my opponent has somewhat erroneously said, I never, ever would support making Virginia providing any sort of sanctuary policies here, because local and state law enforcement must always work with federal agencies when there is a warrant. Importantly, what I have been talking about, and anytime there is someone with any level of criminality, someone wanted for a criminal offense, absolutely that cooperation shouldn't just occur, but it must.
Thank you, Ms. Spanberger. Now, Ms. Earle-Sears, you've said you support local law enforcement's involvement with ICE raids, but critics argue that in high immigrant communities, they're seeing fewer people reporting crimes and cooperating with police. Now, are you concerned about those negative impacts to public safety? You have 60 seconds.
So I'm just going to say, folks, go to SpanbergerLies.com. I think we're about up to number 10. She's accused me of murder, which is very interesting because the very person who spouted murder, you won't even say that they should get out of the race, and now you're talking about this? My goodness gracious. We have found 4,000 illegals who are criminally here, and the number 3 MS-13 gang leader here we have found communist Chinese gangs here, we have found cartel members here, and they're here because my opponent did not vote to shut down our borders. And because of you and that vote, fentanyl came across the borders and killed 5 Virginians every week. Where were you when we needed you for that vote? And then out of your own mouth, Abigail, you have said the first thing you're going to do is to make Virginia a sanctuary state. I didn't say that. You said
Ms.
that.
Ms. Earle-Sears.
That's your lie if you're going to say that.
Your time is up, and the question was, are you concerned about people not being able to or not cooperating with police, those people who are here possibly illegally for fear of being deported? That was the question we were looking for, the answer to that question. You have 15 seconds to clarify.
So as an immigrant to this great country, I understand that the first part of obeying the laws of the country is that we have to obey the laws of the country. And I am focusing on those who are criminally, illegally here. And we don't need them here. And my opponent did not vote for the Lake and Riley Act, which simply said if you're criminally, illegally here, murderers, rapists, pedophiles have to go back home.
We're going to move on to the next topic, education, with my colleague Deanna.
Thank you, Tom. Now on the topic of education, educating children in the Commonwealth is a top issue for Virginia voters in this election, as it was 4 years ago. Ms. Earle-Sears, you have stated you want parents more involved in their children's education. Would you include parents in designing school curriculum, or should that be left up to the educators? You have 60 seconds.
Yes, so I absolutely believe that parents ought to be involved in their child's education. You know, I am my child's first teacher, and I don't co-parent with the government. And so that's why I strongly support parents being involved in education. But you know who doesn't? My opponent, Abigail Spanberger. She had the opportunity to vote for the Parents' Rights Act, but she didn't. It simply said this: if the curriculum is being changed, then I need to know as a parent. Abigail, why did you vote against parents on that? And it also said, if my child is not on grade level, reading, writing, arithmetic, all of that by the 3rd grade, then I as a parent needs to know. Abigail voted against the parents knowing where their child was by the time they were on grade level. Why would you do that? Why are you voting against parents? Why are you not voting for them? Then she voted against the parents knowing whether there was violence in the schools. Abigail, this is a simple question. Why did you vote for that? Why would you vote for parents not knowing if violence is being committed?
Ms. Earle-Sears, I have a follow-up question for you.
Ma'am.
I'm specifically asking not just about general involvement in education, but about designing the school curriculum more specifically. So is that something you believe parents should be involved in, or do you believe that educators should be taking the lead and it should be left up to them? You have 30 seconds.
As I said, parents, we are their parents all day, twice on Sundays. We are their parents. We must be involved. How will we know what is happening in the schools? How will we know if our children are being educated? You know, when Ralph Northam, the Democrat governor, voted to shut down government, he shut down our schools, and as a result, there was a learning loss. And my opponent, Abigail Spanberger, when we wanted to reopen the schools, the governor immediately said upon inauguration, the schools must be open. Abigail said, no, they must be out for a whole semester. She took all that money from the teachers union, and that's what they wanted, and that's what she voted for.
Ms. Earle-Sears, you're out of time. Ms. Spanberger, should the governor and state agencies decide which books are in school classrooms, or should parents have a voice in that decision? You have 60 seconds.
I'm a mother of 3 daughters in Virginia public schools, and just this week, I have spent time at my daughter's school for a school event, and I have emailed with another one of my daughter's teachers about her ongoing work. So she should be advised that I've had some of that communication. But it is important that parents are involved every step of the way, as I have been.
Then
In
why
fact,
did you vote against
with
the
my
Rights Act?
with my 9th grade daughter, who is actually here with us in the audience, it's because of communication from her teacher that I purchased the books that she'll be studying. Parent engagement is extraordinarily important, and I support the strength of our public schools because public schools across Virginia provide
But your vote was
opportunity.
not
They
that.
provide opportunity
Ms.
to
Earle-Sears.
students everywhere. And unlike my opponent, I do not support defunding
your
public
vote,
Ms.
schools.
Earle-Sears.
I do not support taking public dollars out of public schools, as my opponent has advocated
what you
for the
say,
entirety.
but not
Ms.
what you
Earle-Sears.
do.
Ms. Earle-Sears, we're not going to be able to get to as many topics if we keep having to give Ms.
Yeah,
Spanberger
but
time
she
as you're
continues
interrupting
to
her.
lie. I think I'm up to lie 12.
But Ms.
My
Ms.
opponent is-
Earle-Sears,
Abigail.
you will have chance.
To answer your question, Lieutenant Governor, it was federal government overreach and
on
an
to the next
unfunded
topic.
mandate.
yeah, here
that
we
is
go.
what I told my
Candidates.
Here we
Republican
go.
colleagues
We're
at the
moving on
time.
to
If
the
you
next
want to be
topic now.
federal, you should have stayed in
Ms.
Congress.
Earle-Sears,
I said it was
it's
federal
time to
overreach,
move on
ma'am.
to the
If
next
you
topic.
wanted to be
So
federal, you should have
Moving
stayed
on to
in
the next
Congress.
topic now, please. We're going to go to Ms. Spanberger here on the topic of marijuana. You have stated your support legalizing a retail market for recreational marijuana that prioritizes public safety. What public safety concerns do you have? You have 30 seconds.
It's important that there be transparency in what is available on the market. As a former federal agent who worked narcotics cases, as a CIA officer who tracked transnational criminal organizations, as the only person on stage who's had bills signed into
Which is
law
why you
by
should
President
have
Trump
voted
related to
for the
stopping the
Lake and
flow
Riley
of
Act.
fentanyl
We can't hear
into
whenever
our
you're talking over each
country.
other. Please continue.
As the only person on stage who's had a bill signed into law by President Trump restricting fentanyl flowing into our country and tightening our border security, and
follow
as the
your
only
vote.
person on stage
didn't
with
follow
the
your
endorsement
Ms.
of the
Earle-Sears.
Police
What in the world?
Benevolent Association, it is extraordinarily important that we have transparency and that there is a clear market in order to be enforced, because it is in the absence of an open and clear and extraordinarily transparent market that law enforcement is not able
Don't even
to
know what you're saying.
Ms. Spanberger, your time is up. Now we'll go to Ms. Earle-Sears on this issue. The governor has twice vetoed bipartisan efforts to legalize a retail market for recreational cannabis. Would you sign a bill legalizing the commercial sale of any cannabis products in Virginia? You have 30 seconds.
I believe in medicinal marijuana. I believe it has value. But you know, I had a business, and when I had my business and my employees came up positive for marijuana, they couldn't work for me. They couldn't drive my trucks. They couldn't go in and repair anything. We were working on gas. We're working on electric. We can't afford to have people who are working and they don't know what they're doing. They'll blow everything up. Now, my opponent, I don't understand. You know, she says one thing and then she does another, or she does one thing and says another.
Your time
we
is up,
can't
Ms.
figure
Sears.
her out.
Ms. Earle-Sears, your time is up.
Who are you, Abigail?
Ms. Earle-Sears,
Ms.
we are
Earle-Sears,
moving on
we're
to
moving
talk
on.
about the current administration, and I'm going to be starting with you for this topic. A central theme of your campaign is let's keep a good thing going, referring to Governor Youngkin's time in office. Is there anything that you would do differently? You have 30 seconds.
So the governor and I have had many talks, as you can imagine. We ran as a team and we work as a team. And I'd been previously elected in 2001, and then I left political office. And, you know, I saw how badly our children were not being educated, and so I came back. I said somebody ought to do something, and I figured that was me. So the governor and I, as I've said, we've created all of these wonderful jobs. In fact, my opponent was before the State Chamber of Commerce and saying in January that she was running on the successes of all the businesses that we've been able to bring here. Now she's suddenly running away from it.
Just a quick follow-up, Ms. Earle-Sears. So is there one thing that you would do differently from Governor Youngkin? You have 15 seconds to clarify.
So you know who wasn't running away from all the wonderful successes we've had in bringing jobs here? My opponent. She loved everything that we've done. So why would I run away? And by the way, the things that I'm talking with the governor about, I'm not going to disclose here to you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Earle-Sears. Ms. Spanberger, Governor Youngkin is wrapping up his term with positive approval ratings, according to our Emerson College Next Star poll. Are there any Youngkin policies or priorities you would keep if you were elected governor? You have 30 seconds.
Absolutely. I think Governor Youngkin has made a strong path forward on advanced nuclear, welcoming advanced nuclear here to the Commonwealth of Virginia. It's something that I supported during my time in Congress, and as governor, I will continue to ensure that Virginia can be a leader. Ma'am, that is not true.
That's true.
I
That's
support an all of the above
wanted.
strategy,
You
and
know
I
that.
think
Ms.
advanced nuclear
Earle-Sears,
is extraordinarily
I need you
important.
to let her speak.
But importantly, places where I do differ, places where I differ would be on the fact that Virginia lost its place as the #1 place for business, and we have had 7 months of rising unemployment rates here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and I would work to lower costs and grow our economy in the face of these challenges.
Thank you, Ms. Spanberger. We're moving on to our next question.
Yeah, we are winding down tonight, and we want to end with one fun question. So this will be, I think, something that will bring a smile to our faces tonight. The mother of presidents is the state of Virginia. A little history lesson here. So Virginia has 8 U.S.-born presidents. We'll start with Ms. Spanberger. Which one is your favorite? You have 30 seconds.
As a UVA alumna, I'm going to have to go with Thomas Jefferson.
And why?
Because he started the university, with all due respect to graduates of other universities.
Okay, we have Ms. Earle-Sears. Who is your favorite Virginia president?
Well, I would have to say it would have to be the very first one, George Washington. He was a profile in courage, absolutely. It is because of him why we don't have monarchs here. It is because of him why we have a constitutional republic. Without him, I don't think we would have had what we have today.
Thank you, Ms. Earle-Sears. We want to make sure that we get to closing statements, so we'll begin with you. You have 30 seconds.
Thank you for coming, and those of you who are listening. This is a momentous occasion, and it's very important. And you know, I ran a men's prison ministry, as I've said. I have mopped the floors of a homeless shelter, and I have given quite a bit of my life to service. I'm a United States Marine. I know how to defend and deliver for Virginia. I will continue to do so. I think I'm the only blue-collar worker in this race. Please support me for governor.
Thank you, Ms. Earle-Sears. Ms. Spanberger, why should you be governor? 30 seconds.
When I served as a federal agent at CIA and then in Congress, I always endeavored to put Virginians first. As governor, I will do the same thing. I will always put Virginians first. And importantly, at this time when we are seeing attacks on Virginia's healthcare, Virginia's workforce, and the tariffs that are wreaking havoc on our communities, my opponent has not done the same, putting her allegiance to Donald Trump first, no matter the cost. As governor, I will work to lower costs, protect our schools, strengthen our schools, and keep our public safety. That is why Virginia's firefighters, police, Democrats, and Republicans are supporting me.
Every Trump
that is all the time we have
I
tonight.
tell you, we would be drunk by now.
That is all the time we have. We want to
Abigail,
thank you both, Abigail Spanberger and
ask
Winsome
for your
Earle-Sears,
votes?
for joining us tonight.
Thank you for joining us on this debate stage. One of you will be the first female governor of Virginia. A reminder to voters, Election Day is November 4th. Have a great night.
Yep, can y'all hear me? Can you see me?
Are we on guarantee to get moved?
Yep.
The only gubernatorial debate for the 2025 election is in the books. Republican Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earle-Sears and Democratic former Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger just wrapped up. For the next half hour, we'll recap the big moments. Our political analyst will be here to help bring a cleared picture for the race moving forward. Thank you so much for joining us here for Debate Debrief. I'm Aisha Tolliver. Democrat Abigail Spanberger and Republican Winsome Earle-Sears just got off the stage at Norfolk State University. And we have team coverage breaking everything down for you, from the big moments to the atmosphere in the room. Andy Fox and ODU political science professor Dr. Jesse Richmond are here to start breaking things down. And Andy, boy, is there a lot to do when it comes to that.
Wow. Oh my gosh. I mean, I stopped the checks for interruptions. I stopped at 15. That's what it was. It was all about Jay Jones, number one. Winsome Earle-Sears vocally combative, interrupting. Neither would answer questions. Too much talking over each other. And with me now is Jesse Richmond. And what did you think?
Yeah, I think the interruptions were a crucial part of the Earle-Sears strategy. It's a strange approach, I think, just went over the top. I can understand you want to be combative, you want to bring it to the opponent, but this just went too far. And I think it really backfired for her when some of those statements were ones that are going to be just instantly memeable for attack ads against her.
Okay, one of the first issues that we had there was the car tax. We had this sound on the car tax during the debate.
So on the car tax, we could have gotten rid of that this year because Governor Youngkin put it in his budget that we could get rid of it, but unfortunately the Democrats decided against that, and so my opponent, she says she's going to get rid of it too, but she's going to have to ask her side of the aisle how to do that. So we had the money, we can do it, but really what I want to ask, this first question is, Abigail, when are you going to take Jay Jones and say to him, you must leave the race? He has said that he wants to murder his political opponent, and not only that, but his political opponent's children, 2 and 5 years old.
Ms. Earle-Sears, we're going to get to that question in a moment, but first we're talking about the car tax.
I'd like her to answer the question.
We're talking about the car tax right now.
Well, that was still my time.
Yes, but I want to get an answer from you. How would you come up with just over $3 billion a year for the car tax? I'll give you 15 seconds to clarify.
Yes. So as I said, we have the money. We have run budget surpluses every year that we've been in office.
Okay, so that was the first statement that was said. What we heard was it started on car tax, and then it turned to Jay Jones and interruption. Your response?
Yeah, so this became a pattern. The campaign, I think, told her to be very aggressive. They knew they needed to try to change the contours of the race. And so we see this very, very aggressive approach. It irritates me when candidates interrupt in debates. It's a cost to the viewers. You don't get to hear anybody when that speaking over happens. And so here we had a lot of that going on, which is really unfortunate. It was very one-sided.
Very distracting. I think, of course, that was the strategy to throw everyone off kilter on that. Now, we talked about the car tax. I got into Jay Jones, but we have another soundbite about Jay Jones. So let's go to that. Once again, for Winsome Earle-Sears, this was all about Spanberger's connection to Jay Jones.
Were you aware of these messages before they were released publicly? And will you continue to endorse Jay Jones as the next Attorney General of Virginia? You have 60 seconds.
The comments that Jay Jones made are absolutely abhorrent. I denounced them when I learned of them, and I will denounce them every opportunity I get. As a mother, as a public servant, as a candidate for governor, I denounce them. And it is important that candidates always denounce violence on no matter which side of the aisle. Violence, violent rhetoric, we should always be focused and forceful in our denouncement
is, are
of
you
it.
going to tell him
And
to get us out of
importantly,
the race?
Please
my
give her an
opponent,
opportunity.
unfortunately, only denounces violence when her side is the target.
Don't
I
lie
hope
like that,
into the
Abigail.
future she will endeavor to denounce violent rhetoric and violence no matter who the victim. And tonight, Lieutenant Governor
Are you just
Earle-Sears,
denouncing
I
it,
will
or are
say,
you going- he-
you routinely refer to me
Ms.
as
Earle-Sears,
your
Ms.
enemy.
Earle-Sears, just please
You
give her a chance to
routinely
respond.
refer to me as your enemy. I'm not your enemy. You are not my enemy. We are political opponents, and tonight voters are here to listen to
today
the
you're
policy
saying that, but
differences
you said
that
Earle-Sears,
we have.
Your
Ms.
race.
Earle-Sears,
So as
please
we
give her a
move
chance.
forward, we
will both
must
have chance
continue
to respond.
to set a good example for all of our children.
Okay, so that's what we had. Jesse, once again, talking about Jay Jones, kept talking about denouncing him, get him out of the race. Are you for getting him out of the race? And for people to think that that could actually happen is very naive because he can't get out of the race. Why would he get out of the race? And number two, his name's already on the ballot.
Name's already on the ballot. On the other hand, I think Spanberger could have said something like, he has lost my vote. He is someone who I would no longer consider worthy to serve. She could have gone further than she did. At the same time, she did condemn these statements very strongly.
Did you really expect her to say that she's not going to vote for Jay?
She could have.
Yeah. Interesting. That's very interesting. So, Aisha, that's it. Jesse and I continue sitting here. We're going to be talking more about it and bringing up some more sound that we got from that debate. Once again, Aisha, you and I watched this together. I don't think that I have ever seen a debate quite like this one, to be honest with you. And for many people, it was very disappointing. It'd be interesting to get some polling back on exactly what undecided independent voters thought about who they would be voting for after watching that. Aisha, back to you.
All right, yes, and we'll get back to you two in just a minute. But now I do want to send it over to our Brett Hall, also there on the campus of Norfolk State University, talking with people and gaining reaction from people who were physically in the room, feeling that energy. Brett.
Hey, good evening, Aisha and Andy. I'm here along with my colleague Tyler Englander, a Capitol Bureau reporter, and we have a guest here.
Well, we've got the chairman of the Democratic Party of Virginia, Senator Lamont Bagme from my part of town in Henrico County, joining us now. You just stepped out of the debate hall, the only televised debate between Winsome Earle-Sears and Abigail Spanberger. Your takeaways?
I'm just excited to be back on campus. I attended Norfolk State, and man, was this a thriller tonight. It was awesome. Abigail Spanberger was well prepared. She answered the questions that were presented to her. She gave a clear vision from education to health care. She talked about the things that I think many Virginians care about. I was disappointed with the opposition because the opposition just wanted to yell over top of her. I felt like if it was a boxing match, we would have been robbed because the other boxer just wasn't prepared. They just wanted to take cheap shots. And so Abigail Spanberger's composure under those circumstances really was meaningful because we were still able to hear those things that she feels strongly about as it relates to delivering for our education system, our healthcare systems, all those things that are being challenged by the Trump administration.
Did it? What was your reaction to Spanberger or Earle-Sears for that matter? But both didn't directly answer some questions. Spanberger about Jay Jones as well as bathrooms. We heard Earle-Sears not directly answer a few questions. As a fellow lawmaker, did you want to hear yes or no answers?
Well, I think all of us often want to hear yes or no answers. I think Abigail Spanberger, I know Abigail Spanberger's response to Jay Jones was clear in my opinion. She's focused on her race. He's focused on his race. We're going to work together and leading to the election, and definitely going to work together after the election because we have a lot of work to do to push back on everything that's coming from the Trump administration. And if Jason Miyares is elected to Attorney General, we won't have that support. He will lie down for Donald Trump immediately.
Now, two questions for you. My first question on that topic of Jay Jones, you said the Congresswoman was very, very clear. Are you satisfied with her answer?
I'm satisfied with her answer because I understand she knows who's the best candidate in this race, and what we're going to do is we're going to press on. It's been challenging these last week. I'm not going to lie to you, but at the same time, while those that hyperbole was deplorable. What was also deplorable is Winsome Earle-Sears not being willing to push back on the rhetoric on her side of the aisle when given the opportunity today, because that is also public inciting. What Jay Jones did was private and is deplorable, and we have rebuked it and pushed back on it. We need them to do the same thing on their side of the aisle.
One moment that stuck out to me, the Congresswoman challenged Winsome Earle-Sears on her previous lack of support for gay marriage. When she was challenged, Winsome Earle-Sears said not supporting gay marriage is not discrimination. Does that answer concern you?
I think I have Republicans next to me that was gasping for air when she said that. When she said that gay marriage and was not discrimination, when she said that firing them from their job was not discrimination, I think people just was like, I can't believe you're saying this. And I think she should have an opportunity when she leaves out in the coming days to clear that up.
Well, Senator, we thank you so much for taking the quick time. I know this is impromptu, but we wanted to get your reactions, and thanks for stopping by Wavy TV10 and Wavy Plus with us.
Behold.
That was Senator Lamont Bagby, chairman of the Democratic Party of Virginia. You know, Brett, there were a lot of, very interesting moments in this debate. I think it's interesting that the lieutenant governor, the first question for folks who didn't have a chance to watch, was about the car tax. Within 10, 15 seconds, the lieutenant governor immediately changed that and asked Abigail Spanberger if she would ask Jay Jones, the Democratic nominee for Attorney General, to drop out of the race. That was really the theme throughout at least the first half of the debate. Winsome Earle-Sears challenging Abigail Spanberger on Jay Jones.
Yeah, and I am going to keep looking behind me, by the way, to see if we have a Republican we can talk to. And I made this point earlier, Tyler. I don't think you joined us last year for the Senator Kane and Hung Cow debate, but there were hardly any Republican. We couldn't find a Republican lawmaker afterwards to get their opinion, and there weren't many tonight. There were more than none. We saw Delegate A.C. Cordoza. We saw former Congresswoman Thelma Drake, who's a Republican.
Congressman John McGuire was here, represents more towards our part of the state.
But I would say the Democrats came up much more in force. We didn't see I didn't see Delegate Barry Knight here. I didn't see other prominent Republicans that are not far from here show up to support Sears tonight. Not sure if I should look too much in that. The governor was not here as well. So that's one point I want to make sure. Just so we're looking for people. We're looking for all sides.
And we're here till 8:30, so we'll certainly ask as many questions as possible. We're live on campus. We're going to still talk to voters. We're going to still talk to folks who are here inside the debate hall. For now, we'll send it back to Aisha and Andy.
All right, thank you very much. And from here, we are going to send it to our Markeisha Jackson, who's at NSU as well. She's inside of the building where people are kind of beginning to gather. Markeisha, what is the general consensus been there?
Hey, Aisha. Yeah, the general consensus has been that it was a very spirited debate. I'm right outside of the spin room, actually, where media is still waiting to see if either Abigail Spanberger or Winsome Earle-Sears will be coming in there to take further questions. And like we discussed already, from question one, we could tell this was going to be a spirited back and forth. First things first, Winsome Earle-Sears immediately came to her Democratic challenger, questioning her stance on Jay Jones. That text message whole incident was brought up and was a focal point for the very large part of the beginning of this debate. They also discussed the infamous Virginia car tax, like we talked about. Very big issues right about now. Lots of people still here discussing the debate. You can still see a bit of a crowd here behind me. We've seen Democratic lawmakers, people here in attendance, looking for those Republican people that are here as well to chat with them, but haven't seen any from where I am inside, but we are keeping our eyes out for that as well. And again, waiting to see if Abigail or Winsome Earle-Sears will be taking time to take those questions. And while there was a lot of back and forth, a lot of interruption between the candidates, we got to hear them just discuss their differing views on a lot of topics. First things first, they talked about, like I said, that infamous car tax. But outside of that, they also discussed the immigration action that we've seen happen across the Commonwealth. Thoughts about ICE, thoughts about reproductive rights, thoughts also about just all the big issues that are at the forefront right now, solar power. So we got to see the candidates take on those things, lots of differing takes. There was a moment in the debate, though, where both were asked to name something that they admired about the other. They both answered the question. Abigail Spanberger said she admires Sears's faith, her strong faith, mentioned that prison ministry that she's been active in. And then when it was Winsome Earle-Sears' turn to answer the question, she said she admires Spanberger's commitment to family. So that was a nice moment to see as well. At the end, they also got the question about who was their favorite president, and that was interesting to see as well. And those were two lighter moments of the debate, but like we already discussed, lots of back and forth, lots of tense, high emotion moments. This is going to be just a very interesting race to watch between now and November. This was their first and only time debating right here on Wavy tonight, and a big crowd out here at Norfolk State just to see that and witness that, and a lot to discuss. Like Andy, Brett, Tyler already started chatting about the number of interruptions that happened. At times it was sort of hard to hear what the other was saying because they were being interrupted. Our moderators both took the time to sort of get things back on track and make sure everybody had fair time to answer those questions. But overall, just a very spirited debate out here. Like I said, I'm still waiting outside of the spin room trying to see if either candidate will be taking further questions. I'm sure lots of people have questioned. Myself and Brett, we were inside the spin room watching the debate, taking notes ourselves. So everyone eager to see what questions they will get to ask tonight, if any, here in that spin room. I, of course, will keep you guys updated with the very latest coming up live tonight on Wavy News at 10 and 11. For now, I'm live in Norfolk State University. Back to you, Aisha.
All right, Markeisha, thank you very much. Yes, certainly enjoyed some of those lighter moments and a very spirited debate. And we do want to get back to our Andy Fox and Dr. Jesse Richmond, our political analyst. And Jesse, I want to ask you this question. Which candidate do you think spoke more effectively to undecided or swing voters tonight?
Aisha's asking you the question that which of these candidates do you think appealed most to the independent, undecided voters?
I think that the debate as a whole was less than it could have been for independent and undecided voters because of the interruptions, because of the tendency of the candidates not to answer the questions as directly as maybe they could have. That said, I think Spanberger stuck to script. And overall, she was able to address various of the charges that the Earle-Sears campaign has made in ways that probably strengthen her ability to appeal, talking about sanctuary cities, talking about other issues where the Earle-Sears campaign has made accusations. She aimed to rebut those and to close those doors, sometimes more effectively than others, but I think on the whole, she did that fairly effectively. And so we see that the Winsome Sears campaign, she had some very pointed moments. She was trying to take this to the Spanberger campaign. Sometimes she did that very effectively. Sometimes, though, she was so eager to do that that it ended up tripping her up in major ways.
When I told you I counted 14 interruptions and then I stopped keeping count, but the more you interrupt and the more you interrupt and the more you interrupt, you take away the power of being confrontational. And then some would think that she became annoying. Your response?
I think it always annoys me when candidates interrupt in debates. I think that they should only have the mic on when it's their time, because I think it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't serve the public.
And, you know, through all of that, we did hear from Abigail Spanberger that she is opposed to sanctuary cities, which was a very interesting point in the debate. And she was saying that because she's a CIA and my father was CIA, so I appreciate this, is that when you have to serve a search warrant, then you, by law, need to go serve a search warrant wherever that person may be. Your response?
Yeah, so she addressed the sanctuary cities issue, at least to a degree. Earle-Sears wasn't happy with the response, but she didn't have a substantive rebuttal. Then we get to the bathroom issue, and there was a lot of talking around that, but Spanberger did ultimately get to a somewhat stronger statement than I think she's made
Would it have been
previously.
more powerful if she said, you know, when she said, I do not want men in my daughter's bathroom where my daughter is?
Yeah, and she said ultimately, I don't want lewd men in girls' bathrooms. And I think if she'd led with that, that might have been a much stronger way to lead into it.
Okay, and then we were all sitting here and we were listening to the point where she said, Winsome Earle-Sears said, being against gay marriage is not discrimination. What do you think about that?
I think it's an own goal politically. If you look at the polling, this is an issue that the American public supports quite strongly. More than 2-to-1 support versus opposition. And you know, she wasn't even really asked about that. She did not need to interject about that in the way she did. And I don't think it did her any service.
Okay, we have another soundbite here about government shutdown. Now, Abigail Spanberger was kind of baited into this part of the question where she finally came back and she said, why don't you get Senators Tim Kaine and Mark Warner together to end the government shutdown? She eventually came back and had this to say. Take a listen.
So my opponent all summer long has been playing political football with federal workers by trying to say that she loves them more than anyone else. Well, let me tell you what love looks like. It looks like Abigail calling Senators Kaine and Warner and telling them, go back, do your job, and vote against the government shutdown. We only need eight Democratic senators. That's all we need. And we cannot find 8. And yet, we can find 2 in Virginia. When are you going to publicly say to Senators Kaine and Warner, go and do your job and keep federal workers working? That's the way you stop the shutdown, because right now they're having to work, and especially our military, without any pay. I'm a United States Marine veteran, and it is definitely hard, especially in the enlisted ranks, to work without pay. You can do something about that. You're the one who's been talking about all that love. Well, show love, keep them in their jobs.
Ms. Earle-Sears, the question, though, that I'm looking for, the answer to is, would you ask the president, if you were governor, to use his power to work with Democrats to reopen the government? 15 seconds to clarify.
So the president has already said that he would do that. But you know, before anything gets to the president, it's in the Senate right now. The House Republicans have voted, and it's in the Senate. And all we need for it to get to the president so the shutdown stops is 8 Senate Democrats. That's just it. 8 Senate Democrats, and we cannot find any because they're playing political football, as you have been, Abigail, all this time. Love is a verb. It's a show me. It's a doing. Love is not a shutdown. When are you going to ask Senators Kaine and Warner to please keep federal workers working?
All right, we're going to go to Ms. Spanberger next on this one. Knowing the shutdown's impact on Virginia, if you were governor now, would you urge the 2 Democratic senators to vote to reopen the government until a deal can be worked out with Republicans? You have 60 seconds.
Well, importantly, when I was in Congress, when I entered Congress, I entered during the longest government shutdown in history. And 2 weeks into my time in Congress, I went to the White House. I sat down in the Situation Room with a group of Democrats and Republicans and President Trump, urging him to come to the table, urging him to make a deal. That is how we started the path towards ending the government shutdown, with leadership from the president. The current lieutenant governor of Virginia has not stood up for Virginia workers, because right now, at this moment, when Virginia's federal workforce and contractors and communities across the Commonwealth are suffering because of this government shutdown, it is only increasing the challenge that they are facing after months and months of the attacks from this White House under DOJ.
Now, it's important to point out in this, we did not actually end up getting to that point, but in the end, Abigail Spanberger said she is urging Senators Warner and Kaine to work together with Republicans and for Republicans to work for Democrats. But it took a long time. We saw that whole soundbite there. Then she finally got in there and she said it. Unfortunately, we didn't capture that moment, but that was what her answer was. It would have been so much more effective if she just said, of course, I want to talk to Warner and Kaine and to get them talking with Republicans. We need everyone talking together to solve this.
Yeah, absolutely. She could have gone with a stronger, of course, everybody. Trump is the one who canceled a meeting before this thing with Democratic leaders. I think everybody needs to talk together. We need to work this out. It's very important for Virginians. So she could have answered more sharply. I think the themes of the night in terms of style were Spanberger taking a long time to get to the point. Earle-Sears, often very pointed, quite often in the middle of times when Spanberger was supposed to be speaking.
Who looked more comfortable?
I thought both of them looked a little uncomfortable. Spanberger really worked hard to keep her poise in the face of the interruptions, and she managed to do that. But I think it took a toll on her. Earle-Sears had seemed like she was being very aggressive many times. At the same time, she had some moments where she seemed to settle in. I think there weren't very many. A lot of the time, she seemed kind of agitated, and the constant interruptions fed into that sense that she was not comfortable waiting her turn, making her argument at that point.
Should Abigail Spanberger have looked at her? You know, she was just looking straight ahead and never looked at her until she came over to shake her hand. You know,
it's an interesting stylistic choice. Yeah. She just stayed focused, straight ahead. And so the risk there is that feeds into a kind of perception of Spanberger as somewhat stiff, scripted, icy, right? It could potentially feed into that. I think had Earle-Sears dialed back the interruptions a little bit, I think it could have worked for her.
More of a clean kill for her,
More of a clean kill, but she overdid it.
Yeah. Now, who performed in this debate as if they had nothing to lose?
Well, I think obviously Earle-Sears did. Yeah, it looks to me from her debate performance that the Earle-Sears campaign thinks the external polling that we've seen is fairly accurate, that she's down substantially and has ground to make up. And so this was a throw everything in kind of performance.
And I asked that last question because that's exactly where we're ending up, that we saw a candidate who felt she had nothing to lose. So let's go for it.
Yeah.
Agree?
I think that's probably right.
Okay. So, Aisha, that's what we've been talking about here. Did you have anything to add into that?
I think lastly, really, what should each campaign be focusing on now moving forward after tonight for this final stretch?
What should each campaign be focused on as they're going into this final stretch, which is 26 days?
Well, I think there are some new ads for the Spanberger campaign to cut potentially based on some of the statements that Earle-Sears made. My guess is they're working on that immediately. The Earle-Sears campaign, I think, on the whole, came away empty. They didn't get the kinds of moments that they were hoping to get. And so for both campaigns, it's focus on turnout, driving messaging.
What is the first soundbite for the first commercial?
I think it's going to go to that gay marriage stuff.
Yeah, right. And that's going to ideally be targeted to the independent, undecided voters.
It's an issue where the majority of Virginians are on one side, and it feeds into the messaging that the Spanberger campaign has already been pushing about the extremism of Earle-Sears. So I think it's sitting there for them to tee up.
Jesse Richmond, I want to thank you so much. Professor over at ODU, Associate Professor of Politics, of Political Science, Associate Professor of Political Science. Thank you so much for being here. I'll always remember tonight in that debate that we just saw.
Well, it's always in every debate's its own creature. Unfortunately, we keep getting more and more interruptions.
Okay. Thank you very much, Jesse Richmond. And Aisha, back to you. What a night.
What a night. I don't think anybody could have anticipated exactly how this went tonight. At times combative, very spirited, very big overarching themes here of Sears interrupting, Spanberger maybe needing to provide a little more clarity with her answers or taking a bit of time to get to that clarity. But again, we'll see what sticks, what moments will dominate headlines. We've had a little bit of discussion, but we're going to have more on that for you beginning on Wavy News 10 at 10 and 11. But that is our debate debrief. Thanks for watching.